Hello, my name is Martin Roux. I'm cinematographer and I'm one of the creator of Diachromy and Diaphony, distributed by HAL Picture. In this video, we'll have a look on the preset available in Diachromy. I'll show you how they are structured, and I'll explain it a little bit. And we'll have a look on a great variety of images with this look. To do this, I have a timeline with a large number of different images at my disposal, all color managed in ACs to allow Diachromy and Diaphony to work identically on all these images. Their wide variety allows you to appreciate the look in all their complexity. I will therefore apply the look on the timeline in order to observe its behavior on all these images. So as you can see, there is a lot of different situations, different cameras, different lighting situation, type of sets, type of people. So that's a great look development timeline. We'll start with a very standard look available in Diachromy, the Vision 3 look, which corresponds to a 5219 shot on a 2383 film print. This is obviously a very popular look because it's kind of the standard Kodak rendering. As you can see, we find a distinctive feature of Kodak film, namely orange yellow and orange red tones, cold and dense greens, and in general, very subtle saturation. This look provides gorgeous skin tones. Let me show you skin tone, this one. The skins are slightly more orange toned, and there's a very nice separation of color, as you can see in this one, between like blue shadows and highlights. Yeah. And then there's also a very nice separation of colors, especially on the blue-yellow axis. So it's an extremely functional look that works in a lot of situations and at the same versatility as film. So let's have a look on very different situation and bypass the look. Well, this is with the look. This is without the look. At the same time, the gray axis is quite neutral, meaning that the mid-gray is almost not tinted, just very slightly. Most of our looks have a neutral rendering, which make them a good base to work from. If you want to add more pronounced dominance, you can do so in just few clicks. We offer quite neutral presets, which have the advantage of being quite a good starting point for any look development. That doesn't mean that the looks are not bold and complex, only that the neutral tones are not overly tinted. It's also a look that's very pleasant to appreciate with the film texture. I'm going to put another node just after with Diaphony. So with just one click, if I bypass everything, we can see that we are just bringing back all that film rendering that I think everybody like quite a lot. A little bit of grain, color shifts. It's so easy. The look we're going to see next is called Earthy Pastel. So Earthy Pastel is a more contrasting look with very strong blacks and a slightly dirty feel. With Earthy Pastel, we get very lifted blacks, quite green, very muted color, and a slightly bleached look to the saturations. It's a bit like a photo print on matte paper, slightly faded in a way. In Diachromy, you can bring up color charts to appreciate the color rendering. If you activate the look, you can see a bit of this saturation compression, particularly on magenta, red, and orange. Look at it, just right here. a green that cools down a lot. The blue also becomes extremely faded. This look at the vibe of Schenderkin, Marthy May Marlene, if you have it, with very lifted blacks, a bit of a street photography vibe. It's not suitable for all projects because the very high blacks can be a bit shocking. For example, if you have a look on a very dark image like this one, okay, maybe it's a bit strong. But it has a real elegance to it. Also, if you like the color rendering, but find the contrast curve a little too excessive, you can keep the color rendering and change the contrast curve in just few clicks. The next look we're going to talk about is called hybrid tones. Hybrid tones is a look that has roughly the same color twists as Kodak film. That is to say, yellow that are slightly orange, orangey reds, and slightly compressed saturation. On the other hand, hybrid tones completely preserve the neutrality of the neutral axis. This means that it doesn't color the low, high, or mid tones at all. And that gives it a much more modern and digital look. It would work very well with a texture-free render or with the sharp texture of a modern camera. It looks great, but it's not in a vintage way or in a film aesthetic way. Hence the name hybrid. It borrows film compression on certain saturations, but doesn't really steal all the slightly vintage characteristics of film. It can be quite suitable for a slightly punchy digital look with cinematic color. So the next one is Lo-fi Cinescan. It's quite a funny one. Lo-fi Cinescan is a slightly unusual and rather twisted emulsion. It will correspond somewhat to a look that you would get directly from a film scan, which you would grade without adding any film print emulation. So it has slightly excessive saturations and a flattened contrast. If I show you the saturation on the 3D patches, you'll see a very pastel side to the saturation, and look at the contrast curve. It's kind of an awkward looking contrast curve, right? But it corresponds somewhat to an unprocessed negative in a way. So it's more of a look for projects that want a slightly offbeat, twisted aesthetic. It can be particularly interesting for music videos or for things where you want a slightly offbeat film look. A bit like Wes Anderson Asteroid City, for example. You see with that filmic texture, it's very nice. Even if it's a bit strange, but it's totally cool. And look at on the saturation. It feels very soft, very pastel. It just works. That is a slightly like otherworldly pastel look with a very high magenta tones, but it can definitely have charm for projects that want that lo-fi aesthetic, in fact. Let's have a look at one last look. A vintage film look is inspired by 70s film emulsions with lots of blue in the low light, lots of magenta in the midtones, and very green highlights. The magenta in the midtones, in the skin, and very blue low lights. We didn't try to emulate a specific film stock, but rather the look and feel of the monopack film of the early 70s, with a lot of color shift, color compression. Quite a bad film in a way in terms of color reproduction, but definitely a feel that has a very strong personality and that we love. If you have images from period film or images with like a vintage artistic direction like this one, you can see that it feels really great with a lot of color compression, a lot of green in the highlight, nice skin tones, and stuff like that. There are many other look presets in diachromy, and we'll definitely do another video. Thanks for watching.